So yeah, another experience away from the rock kind of thing now is David Attenborough. As a kid, I loved his documentaries and stuff. I was a lot younger when I met him. I don't know how old I was. I don't know, 10. I don't know. But yeah, I was a kid, and you know, I loved his documentaries, and I always wanted a career in wildlife photography. I took a lot of photos of wildlife, and I was even on the One Show when I was like 13, which is like a BBC TV show, about some lizards I was photographing in Bristol. These common viviparous lizards. I had quite a knack for photography, and they showed all my photography on this like 5-minute segment on the One Show. They come to Bristol, Mike Dilger, and filmed with me these lizards. And me photographing the lizards, and sort of my story of how I come about photographing these lizards, because not many people know there's lizards in England. I wish I could show you the piece, you know, the segment. I did have it on DVD or something, and none of the laptops these days have like DVD bits where you can watch a DVD, and all the TVs don't have segments, have the things to play it on either, you know. Everything's so digital now, so I don't know if I can ever watch that back again. I know it's lying around on DVD somewhere, but yeah, this was broadcast on the BBC One Show. This was my first time on TV, but I was on TV a couple of times after that as I got older, which I'll go into later. Basically, yeah, I was on the One Show photographing these lizards. This was a cool experience. Again, it was all kind of weird, kind of working with these, like a sound man who'd worked with Deadly 60 with Steve Batshaw, you know, going out in the jungle filming stuff, and I was talking to him about all that, how it was recording that stuff, and I remember him getting a bit mad with me because as we were filming, I was a bit like nervous, and I was only a kid, and I was like picking at the grass because we were sat on the grass talking in one of the scenes, and I was like picking the grass, and he's like, "Oh, don't do that with the grass," because of the sound. Like, he had his earphones on, and it was obviously annoying to, you know, it was ruining the sound, but it's one of those habits I couldn't stop doing, you know. It's one of those things when a neurotic thing I was doing, I guess, for when you're nervous, you kind of do whatever, you just, you know, play with something just to sort of take your mind off it. It's kind of subconscious things. So I was pulling this grass, yeah, I remember them getting annoyed with that. But apart from that, you know, Mike Dilger was great. He was a really friendly guy. And I remember we went into the Tigress production studio to film, not to film, he was doing his voiceover, Mike, and I was on the, when it went out on the One Show, I thought I was going to go in the studio, but they didn't do it because Mike was somewhere else that day or something, so that was annoying. I didn't actually get to go into the London studio, but Jack D was on the seat that day, the comedian Jack D, and he was laughing because they were showing other people's photography, like bad photography. Mine was good. In the piece, it was all like nice photos I took of lizards, but then they did this thing about, you know, bad photographs, and you can guess what animal it is or something, which is a bit of a weird thing to do. I hope they wouldn't say my photography was bad, but no, it definitely wasn't, or I wouldn't have got the piece, you know. I had a knack for macro photography, you know, getting the lizards up close, and they're all nice different colours, melanistic, and, you know, mottled browns and greens, bright greens, so many different colour variations of the common lizards you get in England. So yeah, I always sort of try to capture unique shots and stuff, and that's part of why I got the deal to be on the One Show, because it was a, you know, quite a unique story and some good photos, which is nice for me. Boost my ego a bit as a kid, you know, that I was taking good photos, you know. I had my Canon 360, I think it was, or 550, I think, Canon 550, 560, something like that. I used to take all these photos on. I don't do much photography now, but the camera come in handy for my music videos, which I've done, you know, in the past, which you may have seen, the King of Hearts, Changes in You with Dom Jolly. You know, the same camera was used for all that stuff that I used to take the photos of the lizards with, so yeah, it all joins up in the end. But yeah, Mike Dilger was there. They come to Bristol where I was, and we shot it in a couple of days, I think. We were just talking about the lizards, talking about stuff like that. Then we went in the voiceover studio, Tigress Productions it was. It was really kind of low budget, it felt. The director guy, he just had a camera, he was filming. They didn't hire a cameraman. The director did it. And just this sound guy and Mike Dilger. It was quite easy because they were all local. Tigress is in Bristol, and Mike, I think, lived near Bristol, so it was like a really easy segment for them to do. But yeah, like I said, I didn't get to go in the London studio, unfortunately, so that was a bit bit sad because I wanted to go into the London studio, and annoyingly the next day Elton John was the guest. I thought, oh wow, imagine he was on the sofa that day being interviewed when my segment went out, you know, that would have been cool. But yeah, Jack D's cool though as well, but he didn't sing Crocodile Rock, did he, from what I remember, so he's not that cool. Or Your Song, or Sacrifice. What other song has Elton done? For people like you that keep it turned on. You know, some lovely songs. So I would have liked Elton to see it, but he probably did watch it. If he was on the One Show the next day, he probably did watch it. And I always think, you know, George Michael might have been watching the One Show that day. Lots of celebrities like watch TV, daytime TV, and George Michael was always watching stuff, and what I heard, like Deal or No Deal, stuff like that. So there's a chance he might have seen me on the One Show. Somebody would have, somebody who I like would have seen me, which is cool. But I was only a kid at this time. I was like a geeky little kid doing photography, you know, wildlife photography, and most people are playing their video games and stuff. But yeah, it wasn't my scene. I was just into animals. I've always loved animals, so yeah. But I went a bit off topic there, but that's my first TV appearance I had when I was 13, you know, on the BBC One Show. Millions of people watching. Pretty crazy. Although I never got recognised for that after, which was weird. I guess it's because I was a kid, you know, people don't sort of notice you. But I think in some wildlife place I went, people knew who I was. But yeah, I was never recognised for that. I've been recognised a few times myself, and I hope I'm not one of the jerks, you know. But for my music, you know, when I was about 18, 20, I don't know, people used to recognise me more. So, like I said, I was quite big on Instagram at that point, and I remember some guy in Bath, I was with my friend Cam with some beers, getting some beers to go back to a hotel, and some guy was like, hey, are you Metal Matt? I was just surprised. I was like, yeah, and I didn't know what he wanted. I didn't know if he wanted a photo or whatever, so I was like, yeah. I said, yeah, all right, man. And then he was like, I was kind of in shock, and then I paused to see if he wanted a photo or anything, and he didn't say anything, so I'm trying to think what happened then. He just said, oh yeah, oh, I like your stuff, he said, oh, you're cool, I like your stuff, something like that. And I was like, oh, thanks, man, you know, cheers, man. And then I walked on, but that was cool. And I've been recognised in Bristol once. I think about 3 times or something I was recognised, because my stuff was getting out there a lot at that time. A lot of my music stuff was getting out there. So yeah, even I've had my kind of moments where people have been starstruck. One person was like, oh, someone in Wetherspoon once, they were like, oh, they come up to my table, I was sat there on my own, and because I used to like chilling in Wetherspoons on my own, just going on my phone or whatever, and someone come up to me and said, oh, are you Metal Matt? I said, yeah. And they said, oh, I wasn't expecting to see you in my local Wetherspoon. They said, oh, they said, you're cool, man, you're cool, or something, and that was it. But yeah, it's nice when people bother to do that. It makes you feel good. As a musician, it's like one of those things, you're like, yeah, cool, I've made it. As soon as people recognise you a couple of times, you think, yeah, well, I've kind of made it, that's enough, you know, that's good. So that was nice. But anyway, back to the subject of David Attenborough. I went off topic there because of the lizard thing, but yeah, I always loved animals, and what I was getting to is I used to write to David Attenborough. His address was like on some fan mail website that was on Google, and I used to write to him as a kid saying, oh, how do I get a job in wildlife photography, and also I was like saying, oh, I'm doing this thing for the One Show, and I got 3 handwritten letters from David Attenborough. I mean, how cool is that? And obviously they're still in my collection, very precious, you know, to me. To have handwritten letters. One of the letters he actually wrote on both sides of the paper, so it's like he put the effort in. That was when I asked him, that was the first letter I received actually. I remember I said, oh, how can I get a job in wildlife photography? And he wrote back, handwritten, none of this typed thing. The paper was really nice. It said Sir David Attenborough and his address at the top, and it was like nice paper, you know, and it's like that kind of stuff there, Egyptian stuff, that kind of paper. Can't remember what they call it, polygraph, no, not polygraph, I don't know, but you know what I'm talking about, like a nice paper, you know. And he wrote, Dear Matthew, if I can remember this right, you know, Dear Matthew, thanks for your letter, here's your DVD covers signed. I'd always send him some DVD covers of his documentaries to sign, and he said, And it was nice. He signed it in a gold pen as well. The autograph of the Life in Cold Blood DVD. That was a nice thing I have somewhere hidden away. I don't know where it is now. But yeah, that was nice. But anyway, he said, "Dear Matthew, I've signed your DVD covers. Julie signed, or Judy signed. Here's your DVD covers. Judy signed. Julie signed. I don't know, something like that." And he said, "If you want to get a job in wildlife photography, you would want to start taking photos of animals near you. A hedgehog, a squirrel would do. Then you would be able to build up a portfolio," something like that, "to show to possible employers. Best of luck, David Attenborough." And that was like my first letter I received off him. Really nice, you know, he took the time to do that. I was only a kid, I was like, I don't know, 13, you know, it's just like nice encouragement there. And then I had another letter off him a second time. "Thanks for your letter. I'm so glad everything's going so well with your filming," which was nice. That's when I told him I was on the one show. I was really excited to tell him I'm going to be on there. And yeah, he said, "Oh, I'm glad everything's going so well with your filming." And I told him what day it went out on the TV, so he probably did watch it. You know, David Attenborough probably watched it. I was saying which celebrities watched it, and I'm sure he did. I kept him up to date with it. And yeah, I can't remember what the third letter was, but yeah, 3 times I got a letter off it. Oh yeah, I sent him a lizard photo once. I said, "Oh, here's a photo I took of a lizard, hope you like it." And he said, "Oh, thank you for sending me a photo of the photograph of the lizard. I think it is excellent. Best wishes, David Attenborough." It was like a short reply, but nice. You know, that's what you want to hear from David Attenborough. If he likes your photograph, that's pretty cool, you know. So he's probably got that in his study or something. I like to imagine he's got it somewhere in a pride of place on his study or whatever. So yeah, and then when I met him, which I met him before the letters, I think. I met him, don't know, it was when I was really young. He was doing a book signing and my dad took me along again. I remember being in the queue, and it's quite a big queue. We were sort of round the bookstore, and I was quite far back, and I spotted David walking through, and nobody else sort of noticed it. And I looked over, and he smiled, and then he went to sit at his seat, and then like an hour later or whatever, I met him, because it was a lot of people he had to get through. And he was really, you know, I think he was quite tired, but he was really, you know, he signed it nice. Every autograph was nice. I remember he looked up at me, and I said, "Oh, it's really great to meet you." And I can't remember what he said, but he sort of smiled. He was friendly, you know. He was like, you know, he acknowledged me. He's a very friendly kind of guy, you know. So that was cool. I've got so many people here. I might have to do another video